Over the past several years, it has become clear that at least 70% of Major League pitchers were cheating. But on June 21st, MLB put rules in place to attempt to completely stop the use of any foreign substance. And what has followed has been a complete train wreck. It has caused multiple beefs between the league's best players, including one that ended with an altercation in the parking lot after a game. Pitchers across the league are furious, causing one to almost get into a physical fight with an opposing manager on the field. Several pitchers have essentially stripped naked on the field during games in protest. One of the league's best pitchers says that these new rules directly resulted in an injury that may end his season, and one pitcher has already been caught trying to sneak in a foreign substance and suspended, even though he claims he did nothing wrong. All season, people have speculated that pitchers like Trevor Bauer and Gerrit Cole have abused foreign substances to get an unfair advantage. They have accused entire organizations of using scientists to create their own unique substances and give them a leg up on other teams, and have identified spider tack as the main substance that has ran rampant around the league, causing an epidemic of cheating. But what is spider tack, and why the guy who created it until recently had no idea baseball players were even using it? Which teams have been exposed for creating, distributing, and using foreign substances the most? What methods pitchers are doing to continue to cheat and get around these new rules? And why new data shows that Trevor Bauer and Gerrit Cole were not the only ones using these substances, and why them and multiple other star pitchers have seen a dramatic decrease in performance as a direct result of these new protocols, putting their careers in serious danger. This video is brought to you by Canadips. Anybody who has ever dipped knows that it can be a hassle, it can be messy, and quitting it is not so easy. And that's where Canadips comes in. Canadips is a new evolution of dip that is tobacco-free, nicotine-free, spit-free, and includes all the physical, non-psychoactive benefits of CBD. So whether you're trying to kick the habit or get a completely new experience, Canadips is the product for you. It offers the calming effects of CBD while allowing you to enjoy great long-lasting taste without all the downsides that come with traditional dip. Canadips was kind enough to send me some product, and to be honest, I've been using it ever since. It comes in wintergreen, mint, mango, and American spice, so whatever flavor preference you have, Canadips has you covered. CanadipsCBD.com is open 24/7, and the product is showing up in convenience stores across the country. And now is the perfect time to try Canadips, because if you click the link in the description or use the promo code BASEBALL20 at checkout, you can get 20% off your next order. So if you want to try the new revolutionary experience of Canadips CBD and support the channel at the same time, click the link below and order Canadips today. On June 3rd, Ken Rosenthal reported that MLB had plans to start monitoring spin rates, randomly checking pitchers during games, and giving out 10-game suspensions to anyone using a foreign substance. What followed was an avalanche of controversy. The report said that these checks would be implemented in a few weeks, but effects were immediate. Some pitchers quit foreign substance cold turkey to get adjusted to the checks coming in the future, and according to one player, pitchers were literally coming into the dugout after an inning or two looking for their foreign substance, saying that they couldn't pitch without it. The first and most noticeable spin rate drop was Gerrit Cole, who on the day of the report gave up 5 runs in 5 innings to the Tampa Bay Rays. His fastball spin rate was down 125 RPMs. Due to an unnatural rise in spin rate in 2018 and accusations made by Trevor Bauer, Gerrit Cole was already one of the most suspected foreign substance users in the league. But this dramatic drop in spin rate directly after this report went public made him even more suspect, and when a reporter asked him if he used a foreign substance, he gave the guiltiest answer of all time.
And have you ever used spider tack while pitching?
I don't know. I don't know if I don't quite know how to answer that, to be honest.
This answer exposed one of baseball's biggest secrets, a substance called spider tack, which was created by a guy named Mike Caruso who owns a pharmaceutical company and is a retired strongman. He created it to get a better grip on Atlas stones, which weigh up to 600 pounds. It then began being used for wheelchair racing, wheelchair rugby, and the Scottish Highland Games.
Ruben de Jong.
He was asked by The Athletic his thoughts on pitchers using it for grip, and he had absolutely no idea baseball players even knew what it was. His business partner did. He is the one who labels and ships all the product from his garage and says that over the past year, he has noticed a significant number of orders to major league stadiums, which then slowly began expanding to minor league stadiums and then colleges. He says that the day Gerrit Cole said this in an interview, his orders were up about 100 times higher than what they were a year ago. Gerrit Cole's interview not only exposed spider tack, it also put a massive target on his back and started a public feud with none other than Josh Donaldson. Donaldson is a player known for altercations and also known for speaking out against foreign substance, claiming a few weeks earlier that he had a whole catalog of pitchers who he knew were cheating and that he would expose it for the world to see. He was asked in an interview what he felt about MLB cracking down on foreign substance and named Gerrit Cole as one of the league's most obvious offenders. Gerrit Cole responded by saying that he felt it was low-hanging fruit. Coincidentally enough, Gerrit Cole's next start was against none other than Josh Donaldson and the Minnesota Twins, which started a media frenzy.
And listen, I'm not advocating, please don't think I'm advocating for it. Josh Donaldson's getting one right in the ribs for opening his mouth.
Josh Donaldson was seen at batting practice wearing a rib protector. Gerrit Cole did not hit Donaldson with a pitch, but he obviously took his comments personally. Donaldson went 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts against Cole, who stared him down and tipped his hat after each one. But this was not the last beef Donaldson would have against a pitcher that he directly accused of cheating, and the next one, which occurred several weeks later, ended a lot differently and was a lot more confrontational. But even in his impressive performance against Donaldson, Gerrit Cole's spin rate was still significantly down, and he was not the only pitcher. Trevor Bauer's spin rate was also a major story. It dropped a ton before the random checks were even put in place, and as you can see in this graph, league-wide spin rates began falling in early June. And although this drop was significant, it was nothing compared to what happened on June 21st, the day umpire checks were implemented, which essentially created a league-wide meltdown. According to the new guidelines, every pitcher will have their gloves, hats, and fingertips checked by the umpires. For starting pitchers, they will be checked at least twice a game, usually after the inning is over. For relievers, they will be checked after the inning they are brought into the game is over or when they are taken out of the game for good. And on day one, it was pretty clear that many pitchers across the league were not happy about this. And the best example is Max Scherzer versus the Phillies, which almost got violent. He got checked after the first inning and was clearly not too happy about it. After the third inning, he was checked again and he was still pretty annoyed. In the fourth inning, Phillies manager Joe Girardi noticed Scherzer touching his hat and head very often and asked the umpires to do another check in the middle of an inning. And Scherzer was extremely pissed. He basically tried to strip naked on the field to prove he was innocent. Scherzer and his manager started talking trash to Girardi, who asked for Scherzer to be checked in the first place, and he comes out and stares them down. A couple innings later, while walking off the field, Max Scherzer stared down Girardi even longer. Joe Girardi came out of the dugout to yell at the Nats dugout. They yelled back, Girardi was ejected, and Max Scherzer just kept showing everyone that his hat and glove were clean. The next day after getting checked for the first time, Sergio Romo went even further, undoing his belt and actually taking his pants off in the middle of the field. Pitchers across the league are obviously upset with this sudden rule change. Carlos Rondon said that 10-game suspensions for pitchers is ridiculous since the Astros got 0 suspensions after stealing signs, but if Commissioner Rob Manfred can still look himself in the mirror, then okay. Gerrit Cole got borderline emotional when asked about foreign substances and said this.
I just can't. It's hard. I mean, it's so hard to grip the ball. For Pete's sake,
Trevor Bauer said that it's hard to hear MLB talk about competitive integrity when they have no integrity themselves. But the pitcher who may have the biggest beef with this sudden rule change is Tyler Glasnow, who injured his arm in June after he said he stopped using foreign substances cold turkey, saying he was forced to change up all his grips, which 100% contributed to him getting hurt. Another anonymous pitcher told The Athletic that his forearm and elbow have been sore ever since he stopped using pine tar. It is fair to say that Glasnow, Bauer, and Cole's careers all took a sudden turn for the worse since these rules were implemented, and all three for completely different reasons. Tyler Glasnow saw his fastball, curveball, and slider all drop around 100 RPMs, got injured, and may miss the rest of the year. Garrett Cole is one of only 16 qualified pitchers whose average spin rate dropped over 200 RPMs since MLB's announcement. Trevor Bauer's average spin rate went down a massive 265 RPMs. His ERA is 1.32 runs higher, his K rate is down, walk rate is up, and hitters increased their batting average against him from 149 to 250. Bauer was also placed on administrative leave by MLB after he was accused of sexual assault, and it is very likely he will not pitch for the rest of the year, possibly never again, and could even end up going to jail. So MLB's crackdown on foreign substances probably isn't his biggest concern right now. But before being placed on leave, Bauer did make this video showing his hand sticking to a baseball, claiming that he was able to do this in a completely legal way just by using sweat and rosin. And this has raised questions on whether or not pitchers have found ways to get around these checks, causing several accusations across the league. A TV camera caught an Orioles coach spreading a suspicious substance under the armpit of a pitcher where umpires never check. This viral clip on Twitter shows Alex Cobb continuously touching his hair and even his wrist during a start. Max Scherzer was checked because he kept touching his hat and wet hair while using a rosin bag. All three of them went through umpire checks and they found nothing. But even if an umpire doesn't find something on a player during a game, MLB can still investigate footage, spin rate measurements, ask questions, and investigate the player to be punished later, which they did in the case of Hunter Harvey after this video spread on Twitter. MLB concluded it was just red hot, a substance that helps with inflammation, and found he never once touched his armpit and spread it onto the ball. In the case of Max Scherzer and Alex Cobb, sweat and rosin may give a little more grip for pitchers, but both have seen a decline in spin rate, so whatever advantages sweat and rosin gives really doesn't move the needle. However, according to MLB, not every pitcher is as innocent, and they have already dropped the hammer on one reliever named Hector Santiago. After 3 innings, Santiago was taken out of the game and was checked by umpires. He sarcastically pretended to run away as if he was scared to get checked by the umpires, which is ironic because 2 seconds later, he was checked by the umpires and they found a sticky substance inside the palm of his glove. He says that whatever was in his glove was just a legal combination of sweat and rosin, but the umpire says that the substance was very noticeable and the whole umpire crew agreed with him. Over 3 innings, Santiago is only seen on camera touching the rosin bag twice, and the second time was while he was being taken out of the game, so it is hard to believe that that little rosin could mix with sweat enough to make something sticky enough to raise suspicions. What was suspicious is that in Santiago's first inning, he repeatedly stuck his fingers in his belt. That could be some sort of nervous tic, or this could be where he is hiding his foreign substance, which pitchers have done in the past. In his first inning, he did this 20 times. In his second inning, he did it twice and once while walking off the field. In his third inning, he didn't do it once. Santiago is a reliever, but on June 26th, he started because the game the night before was stopped for rain and was resumed the next day in the third inning. Under a normal situation, Santiago would be checked while leaving the field after 1 inning since he was a reliever, but since he was the first pitcher of that day and umpires, coaches, and himself knew he would likely pitch multiple innings, it is possible Santiago had a good feeling he wouldn't be checked after the first inning, so he started using the substance. In the second and the third inning, he knew there was a chance he could be taken out, so he stopped using it, and somehow, some way, the substance he was using earlier stuck around in his glove and was discovered. Santiago appealed the suspension and pitched on on July 2nd, and his spin rate was down 140 RPMs from his appearance where he was busted. When he came out onto the mound, he put on a performance where he took the rosin bag and took it completely off the field to prove to the umpires and everybody else that there was no way he was cheating. The umpires didn't really like this and put the rosin bag back. After the inning, he went through another standard foreign substance check and was told by umpires he wasn't allowed to use his glove because it was gray, which yes, is technically a rule. And this was probably a petty retaliation from the umpires because his glove was almost certainly black. Santiago had a glove confiscated in back-to-back appearances, which is probably a record, and according to his manager, had to go to Dick's Sporting Goods the next day because he had no gloves left. A few weeks later, MLB upheld his suspension and fined him an undisclosed amount of money for using a foreign substance. With MLB using umpire checks, endless amounts of video, and access to spin rate data, it seems most pitchers are probably too nervous to try to get away with using a foreign substance. Just look at Sonny Gray, who got pine tar on his pants during an at-bat and literally tried to rub it off by scraping his butt on the mound. If you look at league-wide spin rates since before and after June 21st, the drop in average RPMs are dramatic. This series of graphs shows that over 60% of pitchers saw a statistically significant drop in spin rate. 38% of pitchers were probably using something like pine tar, sunscreen, and rosin, but not the more intense spider tack-like substances. 17% of pitchers dropped around 200 RPMs or more, and this is the category of pitchers whose careers may be in big trouble and includes some of the league's biggest stars. Before the crackdown, MLB was on pace to set a record for the lowest batting average, most strikeouts, and most no-hitters in a single season. Batters were striking out around 24.5% of the time. Since June, that has fallen close to 23%, the biggest drop in a single month since this stat has been calculated. On base percentage is up 1.2%, which is also a record, and for the first time in history, walks have actually increased in June, a month where historically walks are down. Runs per game has increased from around 4.4 runs to close to 4.7 runs a game. Slugging percentage and on base percentage are up, and strikeouts are way down. Walks are also up, which may be concerning for baseball, but in April and May, batters were hit once every 85 at-bats. In June, they were hit every 90 at-bats. This is a dramatic change that has never been seen before and may prove that foreign substances really didn't help most pitchers control, and the increase in walks is mostly due to hitters swinging and missing less because the pitches themselves are not moving as much. This increase in offense is definitely hurting some pitchers. It's also had the complete opposite effect on some batters, and the best example of this may be Josh Donaldson, who since June 21st has gone off, hitting .286 with an OPS over 1,000. He's also publicly shamed pitchers who he says aren't that good without foreign substances, causing a massive public feud with pitcher Lucas Giolito. On June 28th, in the first inning, Donaldson hit a 2-run homer off Giolito and while running into the dugout yelled, "It's not sticky anymore."
Here, once again.
After the game, Giolito saw this clip of Donaldson and told the media this.
He's a pest. If you're going to talk to my face.
Donaldson heard these comments, and after the game, he met Giolito in the parking lot so he could say it to his face.
I wish he'd say it to my face, right? Well, I did say it to his face. We had a talk last night. And let's just be quite frank with this. He didn't have much to say. I said, I'm in your face. I'm telling you what I think. What do you got to say about that? And he didn't have any response.
All of this started all kinds of problems between the Twins, White Sox, Giolito, Donaldson, and even Ozzie Guillen, who said that if he was still the manager, he would tell his pitchers to hit Donaldson on purpose and basically accused him of doing steroids to save his career. And as usual, Donaldson responded.
Ozzie Guillen, you were under a career 700 OPS hitter, man. Like, you were a 3-time All-Star and you had under a 700 OPS. My worst season in the big leagues is 150 points higher than that. And this is also coming from the man that said he loves Fidel Castro. That's who we're taking advice from?
Yes, I know get paid. You was better player than me, but you never will have one of this. I got 3 of them, papi. 3. Make all that money. The Minnesota Twins bring up you to win. and they getting worse and worse with you. See you later. Good luck, brother. It's still making you money. And good, you know what? Your next career will be WWE. They be waiting for you, puppy.
In the next game, Donaldson came up to the plate in the top of the first inning and was booed. He then hit a bomb to left, flipped his bat, and watched it for a very long time. Giolito obviously did not like Donaldson calling him out for relying on foreign substances, but Donaldson may have had a point. In 2018, Lucas Giolito had the worst ERA of any qualified starting pitcher in baseball. The next 2 years, he was one of the best starting pitchers in baseball. During this period, his spin rate increased by over 200 RPMs, and since the league implemented foreign substance checks, hitters have increased their average against him by 40 points. Since June, his ERA has gone up, his strikeout percentage has gone down, and he is one of only 39 pitchers whose average RPMs have dropped 200 or more. But Lucas Giolito is not the only star pitcher who should be worried about their decrease in performance since the crackdown. In fact, entire teams have seen huge drop-offs. After Trevor Bauer signed a record-breaking contract with the Dodgers, people speculated that the deal was made in part due to the fact that he may have had access to a sticky substance better than everybody else's, and that adding him to a team would allow his teammates access to this substance. When he went to the Reds in 2019, their spin rates rose, making them the highest RPMs of any team in the league. When he went to the Dodgers, the same thing happened. And since the crackdown, the Dodgers have lost more spin rate than any other team by far, and lost nearly double the spin rate of an average team. But surprisingly enough, their team ERA has actually gotten better, and nobody embodies this phenomenon like Walker Buehler, who has seen a dramatic 282 RPM drop on his average spin rate, yet his ERA, strikeout percentage, and opponent batting average has all improved. This shows that some pitchers seem to rely on higher spin rates more than others. Walker Buehler can get away with lower spin rates and still succeed. Other pitchers seemingly cannot, and maybe the best example of this is Garrett Richards. In his first start since the crackdown, his curveball dropped an insane 505 RPMs. Since then, he's had an average drop of 258 RPMs on all of his pitches. He has a 7.27 ERA, and opponents have an incredible 342 batting average against him. He's admitted to using foreign substances in the past and had to change most of all of his grips on his pitches. He says he feels like he has to be quote-unquote a completely different pitcher with no foreign substances. This has devastated Garrett Richards' career, and he is not the only one. Since foreign substance checks began, Aroldis Chapman has an insanely awful ERA of 18.69. Before the crackdown, he had a 1.98 ERA and struck out 43% of the batters he faced. Since then, his pitches are down 142 RPMs and his control is completely gone. He's walked an insane 31% of the batters he's faced. Since foreign substance checks began, there has not been a single pitcher who's performed worse than Aroldis Chapman. However, there are tons of pitchers who have seen a higher drop in spin rate. It's possible Chapman relied on substances solely for control, and now he can't use it, he will never be effective again. Maybe it's just a mental thing and his control will come back, or maybe he's just having a bad stretch of pitching over a small sample size. And this could be true with any player. However, if a pitcher's spin rate is down dramatically along with their performance starting exactly when the foreign substance checks began, at the very least, it is suspicious. And although some of these pitchers will probably bounce back, a lot of them will never be the same again. A pitcher named Birch Smith may be the best example of a player in deep trouble. He made his MLB debut in 2013, pitched in 10 games, and had an ERA above a 6. He spent 5 more years in the minors and came back in 2018 and a few games in 2019 where his ERA was even worse. But in 2020, he put up an impressive 2.25 ERA with a fastball that mysteriously increased 400 RPMs since 2018. On June 3rd, 2021, he had an impressive 2.93 ERA. That was the day reports that MLB would start checking pitchers became public. Since that day, his ERA is 9.64. His strikeout percentage before then was 21%. Since then, it's 11%, and hitters have an average of 341 when facing him. His spin rate has decreased an insane 477 RPMs, which is by far the biggest decrease in baseball. So you may say foreign substance is no big deal, but in Burge Smith's case, it may be the only reason why he is currently in the major leagues, and the league getting rid of it may be the reason he could soon be out. Earlier this season, Shohei Ohtani's fastball suspiciously went up over 200 RPMs from his previous 2 seasons, one of only 3 pitchers who were able to do so. Since foreign substance checks began, his pitches have all decreased around 100 RPMs. Comparing his stats before and after the checks began, his ERA is over 3 runs a game higher, his K percentage is 6% lower, and hitters have a batting average 37 points higher. Other notable pitchers who have seen drops are Yu Darvish, who on June 3rd had a 2.25 ERA. His pitches now average 142 RPMs lower than they did before, and since then his ERA is 4.70. Since June 21st, Max Scherzer's average spin rate has decreased 136 RPMs. Before then, he had an ERA of 2.21. Since then, his ERA is 4.55. On June 21st, Edwin Diaz was having a great season with a 2.89 ERA with a walk rate of 7.2%. Since then, his ERA is 7.89 and his walk rate is twice as high at 15.7%, and his average spin rate decreased 195 RPMs. When Garrett Cole's spin rate dropped in June, his whiff rate on his pitches went down 10%. His opponent batting average went up 40 points and his ERA is 1 run a game higher. He will probably still be a great pitcher, but will he still be as good as the Yankees thought he was when they paid him over $300 million? Maybe not. These foreign substance checks are only a month old, and in the long run, this is still a very small sample size. Many of these pitchers will probably return back to dominating, but will all of them? Unfortunately for them, probably not.